If you had a hand like queens or something like that, and you sort of are in this spot, you have to watch how big the pot gets on the turn, like say bet flop call, and then when it gets to the turn, because I see a lot of mistakes where 1500 max at the win.
Yep.
Yeah.
Villain is under the gun, and he's got 2,500 in his stack, and he opens to 25.
Okay.
And folds to me in the button. I've got 2,200, and I have kings, king of spades, and king of hearts.
King of spades, king of hearts on the button.
Yep. I
Yep.
3-bet it to 100.
Now, this is a pretty large open at just straight 2-5, isn't it, for this guy from under the gun to 5? The Vegas
Yeah,
game?
he'd been doing that with most hands. I mean, most people are just opening to 20, but he
Okay.
was doing everything a little bit bigger.
This is a
He's
rec
definitely
player?
the most. No, he's a reg younger guy,
Okay.
very aggressive, and I've been playing with him for about an hour, and he'd 4-bet once, and he was doing almost half of the 3-betting at the table.
Yeah.
And whenever he did, he didn't hesitate to just barrel all the way down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you 3-bet on the button with king of spades, king of hearts here to 100, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then folds back to him, and he 4-bets to 325.
Folds back to UTG, 4-bets to 325.
Yeah. Against most people, I'm kind of shaking because I just assume they have aces. But this guy, like I said, he's really aggressive. He's going to do it with ace king suited. Honestly, maybe even jacks plus.
Well, I mean, this is a very tight configuration of under the gun, button 3-bet, this guy 4-bets. I mean, it's probably never bad to get it in with kings, even at quote unquote 300 big blinds effective, although you can see the large open size changes actually what the game size is because, you know, somebody could open 510 to 25 here and you could have the same post action and you would only be, you know, 250 big blinds deep as opposed to, well, I guess you're 500 big blinds deep. 500 big blinds deep, excuse me, is 1500 max. But I could see this sort of tight 510 action where a guy opens 25, you make it 100, go to 325. So, I mean, it's in between, right? But most of the time I'm going to call here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm going to call.
Yeah, that's what I did. If he was shorter, like 1,200, I'd just get it in. But especially because he'd been super aggressive, I'm just willing to call and then pretty much call down any board.
Except maybe an ace high board where he goes boom, boom,
Right.
boom, right? All right.
Yeah.
So 650 to the flop, okay?
Yeah, 650 to the flop, and the flop is jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades.
The other thing here too is that although kings here doesn't need as much protection, but I would watch, I can sort of see where this hand is going. If you had a hand like queens or something like that, and you sort of are in this spot, you have to watch how big the pot gets on the turn, like say bet flop call. And then when it gets to the turn, because I see a lot of mistakes where most likely there won't be a river bluff if you call because the pot will be so large. So you should be getting it in on the turn if it gets shaped that way. Kings doesn't quite need as much protection. Just something to point out. So jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades, and you've got king of spades, king of hearts, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And he c-bets pretty big. I was expecting him to bet small, but he made it 400.
Interesting. So UTG bets 400. You know, this is one of these things where you can, you know, even if you're like, I play live poker and I want to go to a solver, you don't even necessarily have to go to a solver. You can just look at some of the more simple computer tools about what you think somebody's 4-bet calling range is and how it interacts with a certain board. Because what I've seen as a reflection, although Jack might be there for you, especially like on a low ragged board, like you're never gonna, like say the board was 8-6 deuce, right? And you 4-bet call, right? Or you 3-bet call, excuse me. Like you're not gonna have a set, right? So that's when you start to see a reflection of very, very large sizing. Here, Jack 8-6, maybe you've got some jacks. I'm assuming he shouldn't be 4-betting all that much with jacks with no dead call in between. And then if you have like some idiot who flat calls in the blind to like your 3-bets, then things like go off the rails, right? Because then you've got an expanded 4-betting range. So he bets 400. If you call now, the pot will be 1550 and you will have like what, 18, 17,
basically that behind.
Left. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would just watch the turn sizing. I mean, I think I call here.
Right. So that's what I did.
Yeah. So hero calls. So now the pot is 1450.
Yep.
All right. Yep.
And the turn is the Queen of Diamonds, which I did not like at all,
Interesting. Okay.
but brings in obviously the one hand that I was crushing queens.
No.
And then it gives him a lot of, if he's got like ace king off with the ace of diamonds, it gives him
Right.
something good to bluff
yeah,
off if a diamond comes off on the river.
Right. He can structure some, ace 10 suited, ace king, some of these, if you ever got frisky with like a king 10 suited, some bullshit like that. And of course, maybe. I mean, again, I can tell you the theory of being at 500, the sort of quote unquote theory in a two blind game, the pre-flop solver type stuff is that Jack, Jack, and Queen, Queen probably are almost never supposed to be 4-bet from your hero. Excuse me, from your villain from under the gun here. But sounds like the type of guy that he might throw some of those in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He checks.
He checks. Interesting.
And I check back. I thought if I bet there, he's going to just put me all in pretty often, put me in a bad spot, and I can get an easy bluff catch on the river, if you want to call it that.
Well, you don't have a ton to protect against, and you're in a very you start 2,500 effective, and you guys have put in 725. So, like I said, you've got 17, 1,800 left, which is just over maybe a pot and a quarter. And there's really no kind of protectionish bet you can make and really bet full, because if you go like 500, the pot will be, after a call, the pot will be like 2,000. You have 1,000 left. I mean, it would be like 3,000, 1,000 for you to call. I just, I don't, possibly once in a great while, if you're very, very deep in a certain situation and you wanted to bet small and then not expect like really there to be much of a frequency of getting check raised, and then maybe dump the hand some of the time when check raised, but your stack sizes are a little bit awkward here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also interesting that he wouldn't necessarily barrel here unless he's maybe setting. And here's another thing too about your hand is that sometimes this can actually be played better as a check on the turn, partially for those awkward stack sizes that I'm talking about. But then also too, like if I was in your opponent's spot, you don't always have to barrel here from your opponent's perspective. If you had like ace, king, ace 10, you can do what I like to call sometimes like a delayed double barrel. Now, this configuration is extremely tight because it's a 4-bet pot. So like I said, I don't know how much of a reflection of like 9s and 10s you really have. This is more applicable to sort of a single raised pot. But there are times as the pre-flop raiser that you can sometimes check a traditionally good barrel card for yourself to see what your opponent does, because you think your opponent has a range of hands that might be sort of smaller pairs, and if your opponent puts no money into the pot, you can just bluff him off of those hands at the end on the river. You see what I'm saying? It's a delayed double barrel. Sometimes you could do it in or out of position, and sometimes that will actually risk less. Where I really, really like to do that play is when I'm in position in a single raise plot against somebody in the blinds and the board comes out with trips on it where the big blind can have some trips. Like maybe it comes out 9-5-5. We bet, he calls, turns a king or an ace or a queen. Instead of double barreling that card, you check it back. And then if he checks the river, now you bluff. You see what I'm saying? You get him off of like, pocket 7s, 9x, something like that instead of risking. But here, very tight configuration, awkward stack sizes. I can get behind the check back.
Okay.
But I was going to say, in that case, you call the river off if he's going to delay double barrel. But let's see what the river is.
The river is the 4 of diamonds.
So backdoor diamonds come in. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Jack of diamonds, 8 of clubs, 6 of spades, queen of diamonds, 4 of diamonds. Okay. Now what?
So he jams after tanking for like 2 minutes.
I mean, so you don't have a diamond in your hand. We would think that a lot of picked up diamonds would barrel here on turn. I mean, I guess he could be slow playing once in a while, a thing with like queen or something. I just can't.
I'm surprised. Yeah, the turn check confused me the most.
Yeah, I mean, if this guy's active and he's a pro and you've checked back the turn, sort of making your hand look a little bit weaker than it is, I'm calling here. I can't. I'm not going to fold after I check back the turn, especially when the river's inconsequential. If I think he's going to be barreling a lot of sort of picked up backdoor diamonds.
And then when we're winning, what do you expect to see? Just ace king off with the ace of diamonds, but there's only one.
I mean,
other
I
king.
mean, he could have aces, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
He could have aces, especially with the ace of diamonds too. That might be, played this way, but who knows how he's structuring his, particular hand in a spot like this. Like if he had ace king with the ace of diamonds or ace king with the king of diamonds, could it be structured this way as a check on turn sometimes to bluff river? Maybe. I mean, I would think maybe one of those types of hands or something like that. What did you end up doing?
Yeah. I tank folded.
Oh no. Really?
I just didn't see what I beat besides that ace king off. Which is only one combo.
Did you ever find out? Well, it's more than one combo. Well, actually, because you've got two of the kings, right? I mean,
right.
I mean, it's still. I mean, there's what is there? 6. You got so there's 2 kings left in the deck. And
I meant ace
6.
king off with
right.
ace of diamonds.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. So did you ever find out what he had?
So he made a comment on my chip protector that I bring with me, and a couple hands later, I threw it to him to figure out what he had. He said he had aces.
Interesting. Villain 1 says aces. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like you're getting 2-1 at the end, so you have to be good here 1 out of 3 times, right? So, if I wasn't getting pot odds, it's much, much closer. But it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, you play kings in a basically a 4-bet pot. You don't have an ace. I mean, it's not necessarily the best run out, but
and if there's someone I'm going to call down against, it's definitely going to be him.
Yeah, exactly. Like how you set it up. And, we don't, again, I mean, he's not really supposed to be 4-betting jacks or queens all that much this deep from this tight configuration. Not betting the turn, picking up diamonds, that sort of always leads me to a call here, getting, only have to be good here 1 out of 3 times,
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for, I mean, of course, you didn't see that he had aces either, right? He just told you.
I did not. No, he told me a couple hands later. Hope he didn't scam me out of my card protector, but
all right.
who knows?
Yeah, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.